Hi, I'm Jay Mohr, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
I want to let you know I have a little surprise for you. I've got Reza, Redman, and ODB in the car. What do you think about that?
I think it's time for another intervention.
I don't want to just start off with the intervention thing, but it is pretty crazy. And you told me the story, so that's why we're talking about it here now. But that was like part of the reason why you went to your intervention was this impossible. Not ODB is part of this story because he's passed on, but that was what got you into the room.
Yeah, you can't outthink a drug addict. It's all we think about. So you have to tell some lie to get them to their own intervention. And so for my intervention, they told me I was going to interview RZA and Ghostface Killah from my podcast here in my house, Monday, 8 a.m. And I was so disconnected from reality, I believed them. I don't know if you listen to Wu-Tang Clan, but they're not morning people.
Yeah.
I don't think RZA was coming from an operations seminar on Zoom at 6 a.m. to keep up with the East Coast.
Yeah. We've been waiting to be on Jay's show. You're not even an 8 a.m. kind of guy normally.
I am these days.
You
I'm
are
up
these
every day
days.
at 7. I got guys that call me. For the listener, I had March 11th last year, I had an intervention. Saved my life. I was an adderall addict. It's a drug that makes you addicted to girls and impotent at the same time. I'm a genius. And amazingly, you weren't a part of it. In hindsight, I would have thought you probably would have had a seat there or an invite at least. You didn't get what they would have honored your +1. What happened?
They didn't call, but if they would have, I would have been there. And for sure,
saw me snorting Adderall before an audition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you looked at me, went like this isn't really happening, and there's Bird. Hey, Bird.
They got that out of the way.
And you gave me one of these, and then wolfed down a bunch of Adderall, and I was like, but I was supposed to see that. That's one of the things you asked me to do.
I asked you to watch me snort Adderall?
No, you asked me to like look after you and like try to keep you from doing these things,
Oh, nobody could have kept
right.
me doing those things. It was a fool's errand. I remember that audition. It was to play like a dentist or something, and I walked in. It was a bunch of nerds in glasses.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't have a chance.
Also,
I had no idea that it was my drug use and my complete inability to stay focused more than 2 seconds. So that's the thing about Adderall. People take it to study. Like students, they say take it in college to study. But after a while, it only became something that helped me focus on doing more Adderall. Mm. That's all I thought about.
Right.
Because it wasn't like you hear alcoholics say, I'd say, I'm not going to do this tomorrow. And they'd wake up tomorrow and do it and feel lousy about themselves. I never had that because I never had any illusions that I wasn't going to do it tomorrow. Because I couldn't get out of bed. I'd sleep for days if I wasn't on 200 milligrams of Adderall a day.
One of the funny things about that audition is we were kind of running through your lines, and then there was some kind of physicality thing, like throwing a right hook, and you're like, you were so it like with intensity, and I'm like, this guy is like a Poindexter. Maybe throw it a little more calm, like not like you actually know how to do it. And then you're like, yeah. And then you did it better, to your credit, because you know how to act. I just was like, that's too intense. But those are the funny things that are also maybe driven by Adderall, like that extra like intensity. Or what do you think?
I think in the beginning, well, when I first started doing it, I was doing it, I would use at people. I used at my wife. I wasn't happy. And then just when situations got bad, I would use at them. And as a byproduct, I got really fired up and really excited to do things, But after a while, it just made me really manic. It gave me really bad OCD, like I couldn't get out of my house. I'd be late for a flight, but I'd have to put my money in sequential order facing the right way. Then I'd find like a chapstick under my bed. I'd be like, I think there's another chapstick in here. I'd have to do that. Everything became really important except the task at hand, because there was never a task at hand. It's just you become so isolated. You use in isolation. You become, I did anyway. I became so isolated. My world became so small. It's not a drug you share. It's $15 a pill. It's not a drug. It's not a social drug like a bunch of people sitting around smoking a joint. It's like you just make 50 trips to the bathroom all day. You snort Adderall off a toilet tank, swallow one. It became of no purpose very quickly, where it was just something to maintain being awake. Because without it, I just would sleep for days. If I ran out, it's just, you can't keep your eyes open. That's like before I went to rehab, I went to detox for 5 days, and I slept about 3 straight days before I even came downstairs and got like a Sprite.
Yeah.
Not sponsored. Yet.
So the Adderall thing causes the intervention. How willing were you? What took you for you to say, yeah, it's time for me to try this again to get better?
The intervention itself was a full stop, because having had a toe in sobriety, like I've gone to like AA to quit drinking. I quit drinking May 5th, 1998. So that's like 23 years of being full of shit.
Yeah.
That's 23 years of doing it my way, having my will. Like, I'm going to use Vicodin. I'm going to use this. I'm going to drink 2 bottles of NyQuil a day. I'm going to smoke weed every day, whatever. But and watching the TV show Intervention, like knowing exactly how it goes, it was an absolute full stop. There was no more debate as to whether or not I could control it or anything like that. But also, Pete, I kept so many secrets. I kept wanting to get well a secret. I would pray, like, God, I wouldn't really pray because I was really disconnected. I heard somebody say in sobriety once, I wasn't broken, I was disconnected, because it's a spiritual based recovery, not religious. And when you sit there and like everyone is in a room, and when you find out that everyone at your intervention at some time in the past 2, 3, 4 years tried their own intervention, like this has been this chaos behind the scenes for that long, it's so humiliating that I became entirely willing. And actually at my intervention, it was like 8 minutes in, and I just went, just so you guys know, I'm going. But I really thought, if they read their bottom line letters, like their consequence letters, if you don't get help, this will be the ramifications. I would have died a junkie, because I would have had something to use for the rest of my life until I died. Like, oh, you're going to change the locks. You're not going to call me. You're not going to be my friend. You're not going to be my girlfriend. You're not going to do my podcast. You're not going to do, like, I would have been because resentment is the number one thing that tears us down every day, all day. So yeah, the intervention itself was full stop, I'm in. And thank God, because I just was completely willing to try something new, because I didn't want what I had anymore. And everybody, I say this a lot when I speak at meetings and stuff. It's insane to think that everyone in AA is lying. Like, you have to be a real piece of Samsonite to think that everyone with 25, 30 plus years of sobriety that says they love their life they're all lying. To what game? So I went, well, if they're not all lying, that means I can love my life. But the disease is so crazy that you really panic about not using drugs every day. Like, what am I supposed to not drink or use drugs all day, every day? And the answer, of course, to you sitting here, you're not an addict, is just, yeah. It's so absurd. And the farther you get from it, you can see how absurd it is. Like, you would never go to a club and drink 10 waters, because you'd be sick as a dog. You would never take 8 vitamin C's in one day, because your ass would blow inside out. But that's what I did when I drank. That's what I did when I was a pill guy, I'll do anything alcoholically, because then when you get rid of the drugs or the alcohol, you're still stuck with the problem. The problem's me. My thinking. It's like that Albert Einstein quote, the consciousness with the problem can't be the consciousness to solve the problem. So that's why you go to rehab, because you get like a 30-day little gap between the thought and the action, where some light can get in.
That light's an important thing. I want to go back to a little bit to the chaos that anyone causes when they're an addict in other people's lives. It's like, we all get the tumor, you get the lifestyle, and you get the shame, we get the anger. And so it really metastasizes in the people that love you. And I know for me, when people say, hey, how's Jay doing? I'm like, I don't know. And I have my own struggles, right? Like, I'm battling, and I'm okay. Everybody understands I'm okay. But I have my own suicidal ideation of fighting my PTSD and slowly trying to get better and better and better. And being around you wasn't the best thing for me. But you were also my friend most likely to be dead the next day. I was prepared for that. And I'm so grateful that it didn't happen. But that's not a fun thing to put on somebody else. You can't hear that and be like, yeah, that's me at my best. It's not you at your best, but there's still the love there, right? Like, Jay is still my friend, when he's ready, I'll be ready, and then we'll work on it, and here we are sitting here, and my heart is full of love for you. But that's because I understand how addiction works, and that it's not you trying to hurt me. It is just the disease. The other thing I want to say, and have you riff off of this too, it's addiction is the one disease where we think that the answer is like the person should get stage 4 addiction. Like, let them get all the tumors and really fuck their life up before we allow them to get better at all, right? Like, it's rock bottom. And maybe rock bottom is the answer, but there's no other disease like that. Like, let's let them get even more cancer. Let's get it in the liver and the spleen and really rot out with cancer before we start the healing process. And I don't know how we get better at it, but it's a counterintuitive approach to, if we're going to call this thing a disease, to let it just become this runaway train that has ruined lives, finances, marriage, everything else before you can really fix it.
That's a really great point. But it has to be that way because I had the gift of desperation. You hear that in like a program all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to have the gift. Hopefully you are desperate enough to get help, because I had to be out of options. Because if I had any other options, I would have taken them to keep getting high. So that's why it has to rot out. That's why it has to, it just has to burn itself. That meteor just has to catch its own fire and disintegrate. Otherwise, what's the point of stopping? But what you said is really impressive and prescient, because it's the only disease that's self-diagnosed.
Yeah.
And to self-diagnose it goes against all of your natural instincts and survival instincts. Like, especially as a man, to say, hey, I'm really desperate and I need help, goes against how you stay populating Earth and stay a member of a tribe held in high esteem. It's like, nobody wants to mate with that caveman. He needs help. So it's the only self-diagnosed disease. It's the only disease that the actual remedy goes against every natural instinct. No natural instinct is to admit utter defeat. You just, as long as you're breathing, you're like, I still got it. And it's I'm in a 12-step program, obviously, and I'm big on it because it works.
Right.
You have to smash the ego. You have to completely get rid of your self-will. And it's not until you can fully come face to face and completely see that your will has gotten you nowhere, that you can turn it over to a higher power. Not religious, like the good orderly direction. The group of like a AA or an NA or something. Like, just my buddy Kevin said his sponsor used to say to him, like, so who's making these decisions? Just you?
Yeah.
And it was like, when you put it like that, like, since when you were setting up, I made 3 phone calls and like, that's just how my days are now. And honestly, Pete, all I do is AA first. And when I was texting a guy this morning, to imagine my life without the life of recovery, that bandwidth, it's all I do. I can't, like, that's way too much free time. Of course I was going to rot out and burn out. Like, I would do stand-up comedy, be the star. I rigged the whole system to accommodate my defects of character. I'm a coward.
Mm-hmm.
I'm entitled. I'm completely self-centered. So I'm going to go on stage. You're going to buy a ticket to watch me speak for the time that I deem appropriate. You can't say anything in this conversation. It's just me. If you even speak, you get in trouble.
Right.
You are not allowed to speak, or you get thrown out, and everybody else is mad at you. And then they applaud on my way to my office. People go, "Yay, he's about to talk." Then I talk. They keep applauding. Then when I'm done talking, they go, "We're so glad you spoke and told us everything about you that you chose to share." And then you sit in a hotel room alone for 22 and a half hours.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And you just start thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking. So you said to riff on it, so I'm riffing on it, but it was really insightful what you said. It's a disease you'd love to nip it in the bud. But unlike cancer, like stage 1, like, oh shit, let's treat this. Stage 1 alcoholism is just, hey, let me see if I can get a grip on it. Like it says in the big book, like if you have somebody if they're not sure if they're not alcoholic or not, you tell them, well, then you should go out and try to control some drinking. Like they tell you to go out and do it.
Yeah.
Because then they'll come crawling back you were right. So it has to be that complete flame out, because personally speaking, I had to be out of options. I had to have no other way to turn before I could surrender my self-will and my id, my ego, my superego, and all those things. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's a big part of really fully becoming an adult, is understanding where your ego is, what it's doing, superego, id, all these things. And dudes, especially young dudes, they're all id. Like, this is what I see, this is what I want to do, and we don't ever deal with that with guys. Like, we just say, hey, suppress that. Like, I have this whole thing. I'm not a comedian, but I have my funny things to talk about. But
You're pretty close, though.
I was so fucking horny when I was 13 that if I walked through the bra section at Kmart, I'd bone up. I'd be like, oh man, someone's gonna see me in here, but I gotta be around these bras, or like any girl when she walked by, I would sniff and then see if she had perfume on, because it was like middle school and girls were starting to wear perfume, and it was just so goddamn horny. I didn't even know what to do with it, right? And then the only thing we ever talk about is how to recreate and how to procreate and what the mechanics of it are. Not like, hey, it's okay to beat off. As a matter of fact, we actually prefer it if you did in your own room, in private. But, just leaving dudes just to their own devices leads to a lot of things where we're just going for it because no one seems to understand how fucking horny we are.
Yeah, I'm not sure what.
Well, I guess the point here is that id, that super ego. Yeah, not anymore.
A lot of cups.
The thing I'm saying is that id, that ego, if we don't never learn to check it up, if we're genetically inclined to be an addict, like these things, it goes.
But also having that id and that ego works. It works for most people that aren't addicts. It works. That's how you get ahead in business. That's how you become a great stand-up comic. You're just like, no, beat it. And I guess non-addicts get to a point where they go, okay, I don't need to act that way anymore. Yeah. I've arrived. So now I'm going to sort of down. It's kind of like Richard Rohr's Falling Upward book. Like, there's two halves of life. There's the first half of your life is the container. Like, who am I? Like, just collecting things to put in your container. Like, who am I? What are my group? What's my tribe think? What's my sexuality? What's my identity? What are my personality traits? What are your personality traits? How do I perceive this? How do I perceive that?
Yeah.
And if you keep doing that all through your life, it doesn't suit you at all, because he writes the second half of life is, okay, but now use it all.
Yeah.
Now give it out, because otherwise you're just like a heat-seeking missile at 80, and you're going to be Hugh Hefner without all the accolades.
It's crazy. The next guest I'm going to have on the show about half an hour after we wrap up is this lady named Benedicte Grima. And she went to Pashtunistan, loved the Pashtun world. And they have drugs there, right? But they don't have the addiction kind of problems. They don't have the divorce that we have, because their cup is completely different. And when you think about addiction and AA and surrendering to something, Islam is very much a religion of surrender as opposed to faith. Christianity is faith-based. But you have to surrender to Islam. And so you have these totally different approaches where you're like, that doesn't make sense here. That's not true. But the reality is, it is true. And how Pashtuns approach a problem is going to be different than us. And so I don't know if that example would even apply to them in a way that would make sense to us. It probably directly transfers, but they would have to explain, like, yes, this is similar, but you are part of a family. You have a role within that family. There are requirements within that role that if you don't do it, up to and including murder, is justified because you are not doing your part of your role in the family. And that doesn't make any sense. All marriages are arranged because the parents know more than the kid. They know what the right coupling is. All these things completely different than what we do, but they also are human, so they must have addiction. Do you think?
Well, yeah. I think that's also why you don't see a lot of Muslims in rehabs and outpatient therapy. Like, you might see. I've seen like an Asian,
right,
at my outpatient therapy, not in rehab though. It was pretty much Christians. It's pretty interesting that I didn't really think about that, but like maybe that you're conceding your inner self to the greater good. The parents make the decisions for you, so your ego gets smashed early, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But also there's such a stigma.
Yeah,
I know Asian families. It's like it's a tough walk to the center of the AA table if you're like
Yeah.
a Japanese 18-year-old young Japanese man.
So does that mean that addiction, at least in terms of how we're talking about it now, is cultural? That it's not as genetic as we want it to be, or that you can culturally defeat it through a different approach?
I think some of it's cultural. I think there's probably more alcoholics in AA. I mean, in America than Italy, because it's just part of the culture. The bloom's kind of off the rose because you've been drinking wine since you were 2.
Yeah,
Since you're brisk.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah,
and culturally, can we? What did you ask? How can we?
Well, could you circumvent it with the proper culture? Like, could you build like this
Sure.
stage 1 of addiction if you don't even because the way we kind of play, it's like, let's roll the dice. I'm going to go out and I'm going to binge drink, and hey, one of us in this room is never going to be able to stop. Oh, let's find out who it is.
Right.
And so we just go bananas and we drink all the drinks. I mean, I've sat in a room and drank bottles of alcohol. I have the gift of moderation. Long term, short term, maybe not because I'm getting hammered, but you don't know that until you go through that punishing cycle of figuring it out.
I don't know the answer about solving it culturally. Too many moving parts and too much self-will and too many that's human beings are involved and it becomes an impossible matrix. But again, it's a self-diagnosed disease which lends itself to not wanting to diagnose it. And the solution that I'm experiencing is one of complete surrender. So like the diagnosis and the solution all go against mankind, like all your base instincts of being like just a human being on earth is like, no, we don't surrender. We fight till we fucking die. But the definition of surrender is crossing over to the winning side. I don't know. That's a tricky one. I went to an alumni meeting at my outpatient therapy, and it's just fascinating. With like a year and change under my belt, you just see the people sitting there seething and fighting and like just not desperate enough yet. And a lady said to me, well, AA has the highest relapse rate. And I said, well, yeah, that's where all the drunks are. Like, as opposed to what, Home Depot? The Olive Garden? Like, what are you basing this on? AA has the most relapses. But I also realized in that moment, AA has a 100% success rate because it's not something you can apply to yourself. You have to apply yourself to that program and those principles, and you have to live those principles. If I fail and if I relapse, AA is impeccable. I fucked it up. I took my will back. Like I throw in the white towel, and then after like a few months, I start kind of tugging it back. Like, yeah, but. So AA is not like a bomb you put on. Like, oh, it didn't work. My elbow still hurts. It's a way of living. It's a design for living. So the relapse is completely on the relapser, not on AA. Like I'll defend it all the way because it's an impeccable program.
Our friend Phil has ALS, and one of the things we've learned about ALS is that ALS belongs to each person individually and what it is, how you got it, how it affects you. And maybe there's some similarities, but it's so hard to study because it's so quick in the path to death that it's hard to bunch these things together. And addiction seems like that. And you said it a few minutes ago where you talked about how you're experiencing recovery and the program that worked for you. There's a lot of other programs. There's that program in Switzerland where they give out heroin and needles and all these different things, because if you can case manage some of these people out of something that's typically not case manageable, they're having a lot of success with it. Sure, some people go off the deep end and they don't come back and they die, but they're saving a high enough percentage that people around the world are paying attention to it. So there's these different paths. Do you think addiction like ALS is individual in like how you genetically respond to your lack of ability to meter your consumption of whatever it is that you get high on?
Well, to answer in pieces, of course, addiction is personal. It's what works for me may not work for you, and what works for you doesn't work for me. And it's page 417 of the big book. I used to think being an alcoholic was the worst thing that could ever happen to a nice guy like me. it turns out it's the best thing to ever happen to me. So this proves I don't know what's good for me.
Right.
And if I don't know what's good for me, I don't know what's good for you.
Right.
So I don't know what's good for Sweden.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And the old me would have a big blustery opinion on it and stomping my feet. But if people are getting well, then fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, but of course it's individual.
Yeah. No, that's great. I want to close out talking about addiction because we've covered it quite a bit. And I also just wanted to check in with you about other stuff too. So
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to say just before we transition into something else?
Oh, no.
That's so great. That's hilarious. I'm going to go see Dave Chappelle at the Hollywood Bowl the 30th of April. Yeah. Tell me why it's wow to you, because
he's the best. He's like Santa Claus.
Yeah.
He's become Paul Bunyan legend. But he's alive and well. It's like going to see Johnny Appleseed or Babe the Blue Ox.
Yeah.
He's a real guy. And he's the best. He's freaking hilarious. He's so damn funny.
He's fun.
Hi everybody, I'm Chinese.
I'm making that face.
He also told the trans community, "I will not be summoned."
Yeah, what I loved about his special, he makes so many. I don't know if it's the last one or the one before or the penultimate one.
Yeah.
Was he made it so any response proved him right.
Mm.
And any response they had just proved him right. It was the most surgical thing in the world. I know Dave. You know Dave. Dave's not. He's living his fucking life.
Yeah.
He gives zero thought, negative or positive. Well, I don't want to say that, but Dave Chappelle has nothing in his ism that group or this group or that group.
Yeah.
But as a comedian, your job is to go full telescope and take in all these different groups.
Oh boy.
And then once you grab one group, go complete microscope and just take it apart by the atom, And that's what he did. And it was their turn in the barrel. They lost their shit. It's like, I'm not speaking particularly about the trans community, but if you want to be treated equal, then you have to take a fucking joke equally too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you have to be able to just get off the fence, get off the platform, and be in the stream of life. You make fun of me, I make fun of you. That guy makes fun of me, the black guy gets it, this guy gets it, the Jew gets it, this guy gets it, and they give it back, and we all just go, it's the opposite of being exclusive. It's inclusive. It's inclusive when you go, hey, put on a little weight there, Pete. Are you fucking fat shaming me? Like, no, and I just use that as a stupid example, but it's at some point, I've really given this a lot of thought as a comedian. If you want to be treated equal, then you need to be able to take a joke as an equal also. If Jada Pinkett Smith, with her, what's it called?
Alopecia.
With her alopecia, if she's completely accepting of her and I'm not speaking about her, well, I am speaking about her specifically, but if you're on the cover of magazines and doing interviews about it, then you should be able to take a joke about it. If you're on the cover of a magazine about, I love my body, don't know what to tell you, big is beautiful, then it shouldn't bother you when somebody says you can put your hands in your pockets when you're naked.
Yeah.
Because you're so big. Or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You have to take a fucking joke. And it's just, they just got the wrong guy. Because we know Dave, and Dave is a loving, he's a Muslim. It's about, like you said, it's about surrender.
Yeah.
It's about keeping your insides clean and serving your creator. It's just, God, so yeah. Oh wow, because he's the best.
He's the best.
He's like going to see Zeppelin in '72. It's like, what?
Yeah, I mean, and it's in the bowl. And if you haven't been to the Hollywood Bowl, I'm talking directly to the audience right now. It's one of the best places to see a show. So you have, and it's their 100th season, right? And so you have this incredible timing of the 100th season. You have a peak game comedian who did, in his most recent special, he did that whole thing where he talks about punching down. Like, you say I'm punching down on the trans community, and he brings it all the way back around an hour later. He's like, stop punching down on my people.
Mm-hmm.
Just took their thing and just strangled
it.
With
Little Boozy, the rapper.
Yeah.
He's like, he shot and killed a guy.
Yeah.
Another black guy in like a Walmart or something.
Right.
Didn't hurt his career at all.
Right.
Said some transphobic thing on stage.
Yeah.
So you're safer murdering someone
than
making a joke about someone. He said it much more eloquently though.
Yeah.
There's a few comedians that I'd be like, oh wow, and it's Chappelle, Rock, and like Carlin, Pryor. Like those are the goats, man. Look, imagine a world where all the PC police win. What are you going to do for entertainment? What are you going to say when you heckle a player?
Yeah.
You stink. That's offensive to people.
Yeah. One of the heckles that my friends and I used to use, like, so-and-so squats to pee because they're a dude in the outfield, and so it's like, it's embarrassing because you just called them a girl. Oh, heaven forbid you heckle like that anymore. The thing I wanted to bring up, in this case, we use the trans community, but we have this problem where everybody's so precious. Culture, here's how culture works. This is the best I can explain it. It's like an intersection. And if you roughly follow the rules, whatever, you might get flipped off, but you're gone, I'm gone, we're going in different directions. Some guy honked at me today because I was on the 405 and I'm like, I'm going to take my spot in this lane. Sorry, it's time to get over. Yeah, because you have to, because there's a zillion fucking cars, right? But
Your Honor, he tried to merge with his blinker, so I rammed him. if you're willing for that to be your defense.
Right. Well, and this is sort of the thing with these communities in general that can't tolerate culture. They can't tolerate the culture around them. They're just going to drive through that intersection at 80 miles an hour and then say, I get to do this because I'm in some way special. I don't care what your sexuality is. I don't care what your orientation is. I don't care who you have sex with or what I don't care. It's not part of anybody's real day-to-day life, but we've lost the ability to process these things. And so now these cultural police are pulling everybody over, and you're like, I'm just not a bad guy. Dave's not a bad guy. You're not a bad guy.
Beautiful guy. But here's the flip side of it. Here's where I see the trans point of view is if somebody sees the message, the joke, and therefore it's okay for me to go beat up and belittle somebody that's trans.
Yeah.
But I don't believe.
We also believe nobody wants any. I don't justify anybody's bad behavior. I don't think you should be beat up for your sexuality. Does it happen? Sure. But
I have a hard time believing that those jokes are the catalyst for fag bashing is what it used to be called. I don't know, but if it is, that's tragic. That is tragic.
Yeah.
So then it's up to a comedian, I guess, to deliver that same message where their heart is so, how do I phrase this? Like, I do jokes on stage that I don't apologize for. I really think, like, once you start defending yourself, you're grabbing water, man. You're going down. It's like you're going to drown. Once you start like, no, I'm not because, and this, I'm not racist because, like, if somebody called me a racist, I'm pretty sure my response would be, okay.
Yeah.
What are you going to say?
Nothing.
But the moment you defend yourself, you kind of out yourself maybe in the defense. That's why I thought Chappelle's was so perfect, because he was very surgical and without I'm sorry if I offended, because that's not an apology. If you say, if I offended somebody, I'm sorry. But I do see the trans point of view that they struggle so horribly, like to be born in a different body and know it and not be able to express it. I have no idea what that's like. You have no idea what that's like. Chappelle has no idea what that's like. And if somebody like takes a beating or something or is discriminated upon because of what we said, that I agree with him. That is unacceptable. But I also know that the heart of these men, they're good.
Yeah.
They're loving, because we wouldn't be in show business. We wouldn't be this, actually, that's not true. We wouldn't be this successful if we had hate in our hearts.
Right.
We can't operate in our weird world of misfit toys with gays, blacks, lesbians, Puerto Ricans, this, that, the other, like it's such a non-issue to us.
Right.
Because we've been the outsiders our whole lives, that we're not punching down. We feel like we're punching laterally. And I don't speak for all comedians, because there are some mooks out there like fucking it up for everybody. But
yeah.
He's not one.
We saw Brian Callen. By the way, let's plug Save the Brave for a moment. We have this fantastic comedy room. You've played it. Brian's played it. And Brian, he's so good. But he tells this whole thing where he's like, you need left people. You need right people. We're all people together, and we got to figure this out. It's like I'm trying to kind of talk like Brian, how he does. But he's so great. He's all physical. Yeah, he's just like, and he's like doing his kung fu on there and everything. But he's so great about it. And part of what you all do, and if Dave Chappelle is the GOAT, like Michael Jordan or something, then like you're fucking Alex English. You're out there just dropping 22 points a night, getting your boards and just killing it.
Guy.
Yeah, who cares, right? Like Vinny Del Negro is on the list somewhere. You're better than Vinny Del Negro, but they have all these guys that are like absolute buckets. These guys can drop points anywhere, and Brian's one of them. You're one of them, and part of your job is to break down some of this bullshit and call bullshit out. And reason why it's funny, like there's so many something words. I can't even keep track of the words I'm not supposed to say. Okay, N-word, I got it. I'm not going to say it. Okay, great. You said faggot earlier. Okay, or fag bashing, right? Whatever. You can't say these words publicly because I don't know. We're changing how we talk, but it's not in a way that makes it's like baby talk to say N-word or whatever. Let's just find a different way to speak through these things. You don't intend to give offense, but we all are so desperate to take offense at everything. We lose track of the fact that your job is to make us uncomfortable so we can reckon through these things.
Yeah, but I can make you uncomfortable without saying the N-word,
Right.
I can make you uncomfortable. And it's not uncomfortable. There has to be a punchline. It's a service industry. Right. There has to be, if you build the tension, you have to let the air out of the balloon. Otherwise, you're just being completely self-gratuitous. It's like Patrice O'Neal said once, rest in peace, big brother. Patrice O'Neal said, like, a kid, like on the playground, on the monkey bars, it's like you're doing that in the dark when you're a comedian.
Yeah.
And you keep reaching and swinging and reaching and swinging, and you may fail. There may not be a bar there. You may fall on your face, but you can't take away my right to reach. I have to be able, by definition, as a comedian, to reach in the dark for the next bar. And if I fail, I fail, but I'm going to get up. I'm going to get back on the monkey bars. You can't stand on the sidelines, not climbing and swinging the way I am.
Yeah. Tell
me, no, don't swing that far.
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah.
And if I have lived with the consequences.
Yeah.
I have done damage control in my life. Hopefully I never have to do it again. And that's just part of growing up and being a man, is realize. Buddy Hackett said to me once, I had the C word, calcium, in my set, and he goes, "What's that word worth to you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, it may be worth $1 million, but people can't laugh when they're breathing in. And when you say that word, they don't breathe out and laugh; they breathe in, and they might laugh eventually, but that gap, what's that word to you?" So that's been eye-opening for me, like 20 years after his death, where I've modified what I say on stage because I don't want to work that hard. Yeah. It's one of my defects of character is sloth. And I like to get up there and just sling dick and fucking spin my rhyme, something mind unraveling, and do it. And I don't want to have to win them back. Right? There's some comics that go up and they walk the room just to win them back or whatever. But you don't see Chappelle, Rock, or any of the greats doing that. I'm not doing this 34 years by fucking up nightly shows. Right. And by the way, I do want to say Bastards Cantina. It's a show for veterans, by veterans. I'm Jay Mohr, and I've done a show at Bastards Cantina, and it was a great, great time. If you ever get a chance to be a part of Save the Brave or anything affiliated with them, my man Scott Houston, what's up, Major? I see you. It was really a great experience. And that was a hard show, for example. When I went to Bastards Cantina, the opening act was chanting "fuck Joe Biden." Fuck. The crowd was like,
Right.
"Yeah," and I was like, "What is happening?"
Yeah.
That's not the opening act's job, and I'm not going to say his name because there's no reason for me to out the guy.
Yeah.
And if you're on the boat of F Joe Biden, great, but I got to go up after that. No one's here to see you; they're here to see me, and you just made my job more difficult. And so I'm not offended by his politics. I'm offended by his modality. And it all was to sell T-shirts that said F Joe Biden or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's an example of like, you will not be 33 years in this game rallying people up on the right against the left or on the left against the right unless you get like a niche like platform like MSNBC or Fox News. Like there's the sliver of availability and opportunity for any comedian ever is infinitesimial. And why make that any smaller? How important is that to you to bring your personal stuff on stage? So to circle back to the trans community or racism or anti-Semitism or anything like that, how important is it to you to isolate part of your audience? I'm pretty sure the majority of the trans community laughed at Dave's stuff. I'm positive.
Yeah.
I'm positive. It's impossible that the entire trans community, because my radar would have went off. My radar as a comedian would have went, ooh, it has in the past with other people where I see a bit and I go, oh boy, that's, and no, I don't know what it's like to be trans or gay or whatever, but I do know protocol. I do know what it takes to stay in the game. And like you said, he's headlining the Hollywood Bowl. It's not
multiple nights.
It's not a KKK rally. You can't do that if you're selling hate. Well, some people have pulled it off in the past, make no mistake. But
yeah. It's he has developed so much influence, so much trust. You have a radar, but you're also
why is that?
Yeah, well, this is right. So
because
why
he's
does
been perfect?
Yeah,
like
and he's also seen bullshit and walked away from it at the tune of millions of dollars because he's like, this is bullshit.
Yeah, like you have to be right. And it was Greg Fitzsimmons that said to me, people don't realize we have to be 100% perfect all the time. You could do an hour, and at 55 minutes, you fuck up a punchline. The crowd goes, ah! And that's what they remember that time at meet and greet, like you fucked up that joke. People don't realize, like, we go up every night, and for an hour, like we know the mistakes we made, but you don't know the mistakes we made because it's like a show. It's a show, literally. Yeah. You have to. You don't stay in the game by isolating your audience. It's pretty fascinating. I could talk stand-up comedy forever. I love it so much. And I learned that in sobriety. That was my bottom line. That was my bottom, was stand-up comedy left.
Yeah.
My agent told me, I will not book you anymore unless you get treatment. And I went, whoa, what am I going to get, a job?
Yeah.
Hey, aren't you that guy from Jerry Maguire? Yeah, do you want a Phillips head screwdriver?
Yeah.
Like, I can't, I have no discernible skills, Pete. My skill is reading a room and putting it upside down and putting it back, shaking the snow globe and letting it settle.
Yeah.
So that, like, stand-up comedy, that was my bottom. It wasn't my son. And I'm not proud to say that. But I'm also not ashamed of it because it might help someone else. When people came to visit me, I learned at my intervention they were doing welfare checks on my son.
Yeah.
That was humiliating to learn. My son didn't stop me from using drugs. The risk of losing it, I was unaware that people were worried for my son's safety. That's how small my life was. My blinders were so long. My life was such a little tunnel like this. But when no more stand-up comedy, full stop.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't losing my girlfriend, losing my family, losing my friends. It wasn't losing my son. I love stand-up comedy. That's who I am in my core,
Yeah. Watch me do a little nod to your buddy. Hey, Sebastian Goodrick, thanks for watching the show and commenting. That's fucking awesome. I love to see you out there. And then Speedy Cop has been on the show a couple times. Thank you, everybody who's commenting. I can't even keep up with all the comments on here. You guys are all awesome. The best way to support the show, Break It Down show, go to the PayPal link, mash that, put a couple of extra bucks in the pot for me each month. It goes all into all this gear and my ability to drive around. That's how you support me. It's direct. It's right to me. I don't need Patreon. I need you and I need me. And that's how we make this thing work. I'm going to get back to Jake because he's the guy.
Like Christopher Walken. This is Christopher Walken. If you want to support this podcast, give him money. What are we talking about? Give him $5. All of you, Sebastian, Speedy Cop. $5 in. It's crazy every time. Do it.
I love it. All right, so
Where are you seeing all these comments?
they're just flipping by here on the screen. Here's why. I don't know if you know this, and I'll just say this right now. When my brother passed away, part that simultaneously happened. I found my birth father and a whole new family. My brother Dane just commented, I have 2 new brothers, a sister that I never knew existed. I've got all these uncles and cousins and all these other people, and they all live down by me in Orange County. I have family down there the whole time, and I never knew it. I'm having a little party this weekend, and there's my brother Dane. Oh my God, So I come from a family of 5 siblings. I'm the oldest of all of these guys, and it just has changed everything. So as I'm grieving my brother Eric's passing, I also have this joy process that's simultaneously, concurrently throwing different emotions at me. Where, there's anger and there's all the same things are happening, but it's from a different foundation. And it's blown my mind as I've dealt with it. And keep in mind, too, I'm a 52-year-old dude, right? So when you meet your family, they're all older people. We all have adult-sized lives. So it's not like, hey, everybody welcomes me. Pete's here. This is great. But I got to go to work. I got kids to, everybody's busy. So we're slowly working through this process of just continuing to fall in love with each other. But it's just been crazy.
How do you go that long not knowing Dane Cook is your brother?
Dane Norton. I didn't get Dane Cook, and they all got Dane Norton. I got the better end of the deal.
Yeah, sure Dane Norton's cool too. He's a lot cooler than Dane Cook was your brother.
Maybe he is. You don't know.
I hope he is.
You gotta
Dane's
get some
awesome.
Dane.
I love you, Dane.
Yeah. Well, and Dane Norton is awesome too. So it's whatever. All right. I want to I want to say one more thing about the comedy thing. Going to the Hollywood Bowl, doing all the other things. You've talked a lot about how, like, hey, I don't have a special. Why don't I have a special? And you have one now on Amazon, and the link is, I'm going to put the link right back on the page right now. Altamont, it's on Amazon. There's the link. You guys can go watch it. Is there another one coming after Altamont? Because now that was all pre-intervention, though, right?
Yeah, that's me. Hi, that's why I named it Altamont, because I'm the mess. I'm the guy getting stabbed in the front row.
I know. I'm going to hire the Harley's Angels to do security.
Yeah, pretty much. But that was directed by Paul Tugo, who did The Art of Rap. And I stand by it. It's kind of fascinating for me to watch, to know how desperately struggling I was in that moment. Like it's really like, it's like watching Don Mattingly hit with his wrists tied together and he's still stroking. It's like, did I just compare myself with Don Mattingly? Yes. But I love the special. Like, I really dig it, And there'll be another special. My stand-up now is I talk about the intervention. I talk about going to rehab. The only thing worse than being the old guy in the gloves, being the old guy in rehab. There were a bunch of 20-year-olds with their hoodies and their vapes, like whatever. It was a mess. It was awful. My roommate in rehab was a guy that did 6 years in prison for arson and manslaughter arson. He killed people. He lit a place on fire, Armando. And I didn't write a roommate in my life. And it was like me, a little nightstand, and the murderer, and the arson murderer. And like, what's on the nightstand? A candle. I'm like, this is the worst.
This is terrible.
And I'm sitting there in the middle of the night, and I'm like, my first night at a detox. I'm still shaking. I kind of just treated it like prison. Like, I remember a guy offered me a string cheese my first day, and like in my mind, it was like a day and a half of deliberation. Like, do I take the string cheese? What's on the hook?
Yeah.
I took it because I was starving. And then later in the day, he was sitting with some OGs. I'm like, thanks for that string cheese, man.
Yeah. Right.
Like, rehab. I'm treating it like I'm going to fucking save
Yeah.
something. But I remember in the middle of the night, I'm laying there, I'm trying not to shit my pants when I cough. I'm still coming off drugs. I'm all shaky. And I hear, hey, bro, it's this gangbanger. And he had like a tattoo on his face. He had loyalty on his stomach.
Mhm.
What he doing in rehab is he gained all this weight. Now it says Loyola Marymount. And he goes, just so you know, Vato, when you hear a rubbing noise coming from over here in the dark, I'm not jerking off. I'm rubbing my feet together. That's self-care. And I was like, whew, good to know.
Good to know.
Just so you know, yeah, you hear a rubbing noise coming from over here in the dark. I'm
It's actually me just beating off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm jerking
yeah.
off.
That's also self-care.
That's all. There you go. Mijo.
Yeah. Altamont, yeah, that's on Amazon, and that's fantastic. Okay, so let's close up with talking about some music, because I know we love talking music. Yeah.
I had this thought the other day.
Yeah.
I wish Nirvana covered Footloose.
That's great.
It's a perfect Nirvana song.
Yeah.
Actually, Kurt.
Yeah.
Footloose.
I love it. Yeah.
Everybody's done. Everybody. Music. What do you want to talk about?
Well, I mean that's
I'm
great.
going Led Zeppelin 2 over When Doves Cry. I've revisited this a few times.
It's such a close fight. So we're talking about a thing called album fights that we do, and you match up the it's 2 9-track albums, so track 1 versus track 1, track 2, and you score it like a boxing match, and you get a couple of judges, and you decide, and you really listen to the music again, like you really get in, and you're like, I didn't realize he was playing triplets on the snare during that time, or the way that whatever John Bonham and John Paul Jones are grooving and everything, and then you go listen to. Here's a great example.
Wait, can I just say something real quick?
Please.
What really surprised me was, what really was great about that was Led Zeppelin 2 was really in my wheelhouse and always has been.
Yeah.
But to go back and listen to when Purple Rain, track for track, was eye-opening.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, my man brought the fucking stank.
Yeah.
And like the track itself, When Doves Cry and Purple Rain, it's just like, I got goosebumps talking. Oh,
same.
You too?
Yeah.
I was in Hawaii and I was stoned. As Ralphie would say, I was stoned like a biblical whore, Jay Mohr. And I'm walking into my hotel room and I'm actually listening to When Doves Cry with earbuds in. And you leave your patio open.
Yeah.
And all the fucking birds come in to peck away the room service
Right.
club sandwich.
Yeah.
So there's like 8 pigeons in my room. And I'm listening, wow, when Doves Cry, and I open my door, and there's fucking birds everywhere, and I go, ah! It scared the shit out of me. What are the odds? You're listening to When Doves Cry, and you open your door, and there's birds in your hotel room.
These things make a difference, though. Like, so when you go in and like you're trying to break a tie, because we don't like ties. Like, okay, you want to have a 10-10 round, you're going to get hazed for it because you didn't dig deep enough. You got to dig deeper. And one of the tiebreakers for me in this case, as great as Led Zeppelin is, it's 4 dudes versus fucking Prince. And that matters, right? Or no?
Yeah, it's the last, because it's an even fight, Purple Rain versus Led Zeppelin 2. Like, track for track, it is on.
Yeah.
And I had it tied going into the last round.
Wow.
And it was Purple Rain versus Baby.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Bring It On Home.
Okay.
And I'm like, and I had that thought because like Robert Plant does like an old blues guy and through the harmonica, bring it on to me.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, yeah, that's Jimmy Page. So this is just Prince, like months at a dat, just working and working and working and working.
Yeah.
And When Doves Cry is like, is that the hardest slow song?
Maybe. I don't know. That's the thing is like you ask these questions,
Fame's up there. Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Like the hardest slow jams ever. Like where you just want to go out and knock somebody out.
Yeah.
Fame when the Purple Rain. Purple Rain might be the hardest slow jam ever.
And for anybody who doesn't know, one of the things about these things is like normally by the end of the album, there's not a whole lot of juice left in the fight, right? But Prince puts this monster at the end. And not only that, it gets bigger because he plays that fucking Super Bowl show and says the most amazing line ever for Purple. It's like, can you make it rain harder? And then, by the way, it's fucking Purple Rain. So there's Purple Rain all throughout the stadium.
Yeah.
And everybody else is worried. Prince never, high heels, dancing, multiple ones. Can I play this guitar? Yes, please do it.
I saw him at the Roosevelt Hotel. This little room, and it was astounding. And I remember I had Bootsy Collins on my podcast, and he was with like his buddy. And just two old school brothers sitting there. We're chopping it up. It was amazing. And I said to Bootsy Collins, and I go, and Prince, like, it was amazing. They're like, oh, yeah, he's the man. I go, and he plays guitar, like, as well as Jimi Hendrix. And they both go, easy now.
Mm. Yeah.
They both like, pump the brakes on that.
Yeah.
Like, and Jimmy's even above Prince.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you experienced a slow jam that rocks.
There you go. Yeah. See, and Jimmy gets to be special because he changed a lot. There is a penalty, though. He left a lot of money on the table, and we give him a lot of credit for that. John Bonham left a lot of. You die at 32. Any song, any jam, anywhere, can you lay down a legendary, track, and you don't get to learn enough. You don't go through a divorce. You don't go through somebody close to you dying.
But
There's
also like the
value in
Rolling
that.
Stones at 78 going like.
Right. No, there's a balance. There's a balance there, right? But and
Are you surprised? Did you go see them last time?
I did. I stayed. My brother died. I went to go see him.
It couldn't have been great.
Well, because I hadn't seen it. So here's the funny thing. Speaking of Altamont, the last time I was at a Stone show, I was in utero 9 months with my mom at Altamont. And so I had the longest gap of like Rolling Stone shows because it was 52 years.
Your mom was at Altamont?
Yeah, she was. She was at Altamont, and I was like, she was like, I thought it was possible that I could have you there, like if anything happened like that.
Oh, in the mud, Little Pete in the mud.
Yeah. I wasn't born there, but definitely was big enough to hear and in some form experience it.
I'm sure you watched the doc, right?
Yeah. I've seen all that.
All the music.
It's always been interesting to me. Yeah.
Everything's off.
Yeah.
Ultimatum. And it's great because like the crowd is like fist fighting and guys are getting like tattooed by pool cues and stuff by the Hells Angels.
Yeah.
And Mick's like, children, there's so many of you. If we can just sort of chill out and love each other. And then Keith goes, that cat right there, man. Like Keith, the difference between these two, Mick's so full of shit. And Keith is just like a pirate, like, that cat right there, man. Fucking cool it.
Yeah.
You ever see Keith when he hits the guy over the head with his guitar in Virginia Beach?
No.
You can watch it on YouTube. They're playing. It's the encore.
Yeah.
Back in like I guess 82, where the big finale was like balloons would drop from the ceiling before like light shows.
Yeah.
And all these balloons are coming down. It's like and this guy just runs across the stage and Keith just takes off his guitar, bow, and just puts the guitar back. He just goes back to it.
There's only so many stadium level acts who can tour the world at a stadium level. And then within that group, there are only so many great shows, right? We're not talking pyrotechnics and, like that, like Pink Floyd, when you got a fucking pig flying above the stadium, stuff where you're just like, this is a show. U2 does this well. They're maybe the best ever at it. And the Stones try. They do all right. They got a lot of video screens, but video screens is kind of like, that's like professional level. But there's that level above where you actually focus on the art of it. So U2, yes, Pink Floyd, but who else comes to mind in terms of like these guys?
Well, like Zeppelin in 72, 75, they were like the first arena band, period. Like they didn't know people were going to show up. Like they came over from England and they booked football stadiums.
Yeah.
And it was like, we think it'll work.
Yeah.
Like Jimmy Page playing with that big bow.
Right.
So going back to our old discussion, like if you could only go see one concert, I think we got it down to like 3, and it's really tough. Like my knee jerk is like Zeppelin 72, The Clash at Shea Stadium, that live album, In the Rain.
Yeah.
But then like fucking Bob Marley at the Whiskey with like 18 chicks on stage.
Yeah.
They're all like rocking that shit out. What's the one concert you go see? You can only go see one.
I think Marley is a great answer. That song, Three Little Birds, that belongs to all of us now. Yeah. Just talking about that just gives me goosebumps. Because
it only seats 150 people.
Yeah. I did get to see, and I think I've said this before to you, I got to see Bo Diddley, who's playing in my hometown, a little tiny little show, but he had oral surgery that day. And so he's an old time, like, I'm going out. I got this guitar. And so he would go, rawr, rawr. He could barely say, hey, Bo Diddley, and didn't really see anything else. But it became a notable show. No one knows about it anymore, but it was a really special show because it was like he easily could have phoned it in and said, hey, I can't play this little town of 15,000 people tonight. I had oral surgery today. Sorry, everybody. But he came out and he fucking played and put like a pro can. He put on this incredible show.
I saw James Brown at I think it was SOBs in Manhattan, real small, towards the end.
Yeah.
I guess he had new teeth or something. He couldn't say you. So he kept going, I love you. He just could not make a yeah, or his teeth would pop out. So it was like, I love you. Like it was really bizarre.
Yeah, yeah.
But it was great.
Yeah.
But Bo Diddley, Hey Mona.
Yeah.
People don't even know, dude. These cats just did not give a fuck. I mean, they wrote songs. Bo Diddley.
Yeah.
Bo Diddley wrote a song, Hey Bo Diddley.
Right. I've been reading Chris Thomas King's written a history of the blues. I should get it for you. You'd love it. It's such a fucking great book. And he takes all the history that we think we know. And it turns out people have been fucking musicians over since there have been people and musicians, right? And so he talks about all these guys. Yeah, Tim Panally, all of that. And there's this guy, Jelly Roll Morton, who wrote He wrote the Jelly Roll Blues, you know? And then and these fucking Harvard
new bit is called Jay Mohr.
I love it. These Harvard assholes come out and is like, no, that's jazz. Like the fucking blues is in the goddamn title. You know, like they get to tell you what it is. You're a comedian. Your words are the words that you put out. We don't get to change that shit. It's like telling Mark Twain, I don't know, you don't get to say that. No, Mark Twain gets to say whatever he wants to say because he's his, lyrical genius. So you have these people who create all of American music basically in New Orleans, and everything comes from it. Jazz, blues, rock and roll, whatever, Dixie, all that shit comes out of that place because it's always been this party city full of music. Same thing with comedians. You guys get to say what you say because you have the license to do it, and you know what it means to have that license. We don't have that license. You have it. So just close on those thoughts, and then we'll get the heck out of here.
Yeah. Well, it's just Joe Torre told me this once. He went to take David Cohn off the mound in the World Series. And when he got out to the mound, David Cohn said, I feel good. And Joe Torre goes, then what the fuck am I doing out here? So anytime you don't like a show, it's like, well, then what? Really? It wasn't funny? Then what the fuck am I doing out here? Why would I come up here and say it if I didn't know it was funny?
Right.
Like I say on stage, like I've been doing comedy 33 years. If the show sucks, it's you.
Yeah.
It ain't me. Like drummers and comics, we just keep time. It's like breaking the sound barrier, but with time and space.
Mm-hmm.
Like how long can I blow this balloon before it breaks? And how long can I do it? How long can I keep all these fish in this net? And we know when fish are wiggling out. It pisses us off, but the show must go on,
Yeah, that's great, man. I love it. Drawn, by the way, said Prince always closed big, and that's definitely true. And there's a show right there. I'll go see Prince in any venue, anytime, anywhere.
Not anymore, you won't.
All right, stand by.
Hey, thanks for watching the show. I really appreciate it. Right here, you can subscribe. Please do that. It makes the show grow. Hit that notification bell so you know which incredible guest is coming up next. Down below is the PayPal link. You can put a small subscription in. That is an enormous help. All that money goes right back into the show. And then right up over here are the next episodes you should listen to, curated by yours truly. Thank you so much.